What hidden truth made you regret hating your parent for years? I hated my dad for most of my childhood. The man worked construction and came home every night covered in dirt, smelling like sweat and cement. While other kids' dads wore suits and ties, mine showed up to school events in his work boots and stained shirts. He missed every single one of my baseball games, every school play, every parent-teacher conference. Mom would always make excuses, saying he was working late or had an emergency job site. I stopped believing her after the third missed birthday party. When I was 12, I overheard my friends talking about their dads. Tommy's dad coached Little League. Alex's dad helped with homework every night. Mike's dad took him camping on weekends. What does your dad do with you? They asked. I couldn't think of a single thing. He was always gone before I woke up and exhausted when he got home. We barely talked except for him telling me to turn down my music or clean my room. The worst part was how embarrassed I felt. During career day, all the other kids brought their dads in suits to talk about being lawyers or doctors or businessmen. I told my teacher my dad was sick so he couldn't come. Truth was, I was ashamed of him. This quiet man who barely finished high school, whose hands were permanently stained with grease, who fell asleep watching TV every night because he was so tired from work. By high school, I was furious at him. Other dads came to games and cheered. Other dads helped with college applications. Other dads seemed to actually care about their kids' lives. Mine just worked and slept and worked some more. When I graduated high school, he shook my hand and said he was proud, but he'd never been to a single game where I made varsity. Never saw me get academic awards. Never knew I was class president because he was never around to hear about it. I went to college on a scholarship and barely called home. When I did, Mom would put him on the phone and we'd have these awkward 30-second conversations about the weather. I figured he just didn't care about my life. After college, I got a good job in accounting, started making decent money, moved into a nice apartment. Finally, I thought, I'm nothing like him. I wear a tie to work. I have clean fingernails. I matter. For years, I'd visit home maybe twice a year, Christmas and Mom's birthday. Dad and I would sit in the same room watching TV without talking. The silence felt normal by then. I'd convinced myself we just had nothing in common. Last month, Mom called crying. Dad had a heart attack at work and died instantly, at 55 years old. I flew home for the funeral, still angry at him for being absent my whole life. That's when Mom sat me down and showed me a box from Dad's closet. Inside were newspaper clippings of every single article about my baseball team, programs from every school play I was in, report cards he'd somehow gotten copies of, photos of me at graduation that I didn't even know existed. Mom started crying harder. He worked double shifts for 18 years to pay for your college, she said. Every weekend job, every late night, every missed dinner was him saving money so you wouldn't have student loans. She pulled out a bank statement. Dad had saved over $200,000, all of it marked for my education and future. Money he'd earned working 16-hour days while I was busy hating him for not being around. He never wanted you to know, Mom whispered. He said if you knew he was sacrificing for you, you'd feel guilty instead of focusing on your dreams. He'd rather you hate him than feel like you owed him anything. Then she showed me his work schedule for the past 20 years. He'd been taking the worst shifts, the dangerous jobs, the weekend overtime that nobody else wanted. Also, he could afford my college tuition without me ever knowing. At the funeral, his construction crew showed up in their work clothes. Dirty, tired men who told me stories about my dad I'd never heard. How he bragged about me constantly. How he carried pictures of me in his hard hat. How he'd work anyone's shift if they needed time with their kids because he knew what it felt like to miss everything. His boss handed me a letter Dad had written to be given to me after he died. In shaky handwriting, he wrote, "I'm sorry I wasn't the dad you deserved, but watching you become everything I never could be was worth every missed game. You were my biggest success even if you never knew it. I spent 30 years hating a man who sacrificed everything so I could have a better life than he did."